Good morning and welcome to Finding My Path, episode 6. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about overcoming ourselves. Really, it starts with overcoming me, and I hope that some of it might be of benefit to you as well. This is really about the topic of our personal daily fight. We all have things that we struggle with. We all have things that we overcome in the world, in our daily life from an external perspective. We have to make payroll if we run a company, or we run into challenges with what other people do. But we also have these struggles that are internal. We have our own mind, the little crazy voice in our head that talks to us and tries to tell us bad things. It's been suggested to me that we name that voice and understand that he's a jerk. Or she's a jerk, and putting a name to it can make it a little bit easier. But what are your personal daily fights? What are the things that you struggle with on a daily basis that you need to overcome in your world? That's going to be a key component of what we talk about today. And in fact, I'll start with that. And for me, I would say that I have what I would like to call the leadership AAA cocktail. It is dealing with anxiety, ADHD, and addictive traits. Now, these things combine in a lovely way that makes it sometimes challenging to get through the day. I've spent time in the past with you guys talking about the idea of overcoming depression and dealing with anxiety and limiting overwhelm. This is at the foundational piece of those. And today I'm not looking to go super in depth with those, but more to recognize that, hey, I've been struggling with this AAA cocktail for a little bit now. I think it's worth and important to put it out there and to own it and to recognize that so many people do. So for me, this typically shows in another way, which I'll tie into it, which is dealing with imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome, if you haven't heard that term before, is the idea that no matter how successful you are, that you feel like someone is going to find you out, or you want to be more successful, but you feel like you're ahead of where you could be just from some people's perception. This is amazing because it occurs even in people who are super successful, who are super famous, who are very well known and have powerfully impacted thousands or millions of people's lives. They still will often struggle. And if you read different biographies, you'll see it. If you see interviews, then you will hear about it. They'll often struggle just with this idea that they are not good enough and somebody's going to figure that out. And I certainly have had moments of that where I'll talk to a client and we'll be talking about these huge successes that have come because of our meetings. We'll be talking about how they're increasing by hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars, or even just that they're finding their dreams and they're doing it as a result of our conversations. But in my head, it's just rattling around. Oh my gosh, could that be me? Did we just get lucky? Even though it happens consistently. It's amazing the doubt that creeps in. And a lot of it comes from this leadership AAA cocktail in my case. So anxiety, I can start to feel anxious. I can start to feel stressed. I can start to feel overwhelmed, and things just getting to me, and the doubts creeping in, and the voices, not real voices, let's be clear, but just those pieces starting to eat at me. Then, as I try to focus to get out of that, I try to focus to get past it, what I find is that I'll find things that are shiny, right? I'll be working on a task and I'll be looking at something, and then somebody will send me a text or make a call, or I'll see a notification if I don't have them turned off. This is one of the reasons why in our time management training, I challenge everyone to turn their notifications off and to stay aware of those things so that they don't get distracted by them. Well, then it continues down a path, which is that I have addictive traits. There are addictions at different levels of my family. I have thankfully managed to avoid the full-on addictions and falling into that trait, partially because of awareness, partially because I think of some good luck, partially because of a great support system around me. But recognizing that I have those traits, if I get distracted by something, for example, I look and I see, oh wow, there's this new fast game on Facebook. I might be then looking like, how do I get to level 100? How do I get all the way in there? I do one and then I want to do the other. The way this shows in leadership is that it can distract from your progress. It can distract from you moving forward. It can distract from you taking care of your team. It can also work a little bit differently. It can be that you become addicted to a certain part of what you're doing at the loss of some of the other things. You really need a person to give you a certain level of approval, or you like a certain task, so you groove on that and keep doing that at the expense of some others. Or with the ADHD portion, in my case, I could be working on something that's very important, and then I see something else, or I hear about something else that could be important, or maybe it's not. And instead of putting it in its place, I get distracted and put it out of its place. So those are some things that I fight on a daily basis. What are your fights? I think many people's are different. Maybe you have one or more of the same that I do, but what is it that you are fighting to overcome, and how do you do that? For me, the way that I do that are exactly the strategies that I teach in the time management and overcoming overwhelm and decreasing anxiety courses that I train. It's really about keeping things organized, scheduling the right way, turning notifications off, doing email just a few times a day, limiting my exposure to some of these things. It's also about making positive choices and recognizing who I am, recognizing that I can be distracted. So do I plan in a way that helps me with that? Recognizing that I'm going to feel anxious. So doing things that allow me to decrease anxiety levels, remembering that motion trumps emotion as an example, so that I make sure I have motion planned into my day. Doing the things that are energizing instead of draining. You're more distractible when you're doing a draining task than you are when you're doing an energizing task. So making sure that I balance those out. Those are some of the things that I do to get past that piece. The imposter syndrome is tied to that, and I think it's important to get past that as well. So how do you help yourself understand that they're not going to find you out, that what you're doing is real? I think one is to look objectively at results. So take a moment and step back and look objectively and have markers and measurements that put you in a spot where when you do look, that you can see, okay, objectively, we went from here to here. This happened as a result of what we did. That helps, right? That gives you that validation. Secondly is certainly to create a breadth of results. In other words, when you have one success, it's easy in our minds to call that a fluke. When you have two or three, it's a little harder. When you have 20 successes that are at an individual thing, or something that's helped 20 or 100 or 1,000 people, it is a lot harder, even in our mind, to justify calling that a fluke in any way. So that's one, is to give yourself that validation of breadth of success. Another is to give yourself that objective perspective, that objective series of here's where we went and here's where we were and here's where we are, and look at that in a clear light. And the third is really just to remember that what you do and who you are has value. And as long as you are not intentionally deceiving somebody, and hopefully none of you are, that it's not about the imposter. It's really about you being who you are and seeing the impact that can have on the world. Remember to always invert your perspective. So ask yourself, if this were someone else, if these results or this experience came as a result of someone else that I know, my friend or a colleague or someone like that, what would I say about it? That objectivity of getting outside of yourself is sometimes one of the best way to overcome yourself. And I find that to be true with many challenges that we face. Get outside yourself to overcome yourself. And that is that will help you a great deal. So let's talk about a couple of the successes that are going on today. I've been really excited about a number of things that we've been talking about, such as the new website and the different series that we're working on. But I have a couple of new ones today. First of all is our podcast that we've been interviewed for that goes live today. I love podcasts. I love listening to them. I've listened to a ton, and I also am really enjoying the opportunity to be a guest on a number of podcasts. Earlier this, I guess it was last month, I was fortunate to be a guest and interviewed for the Anthem of the Adventurer podcast by a good friend and a great guy, Dan Zener, talking about the importance of adventure in people's lives. Check that out. And then today, this morning, another one went live, which is by a great guy by the name of Lee Hoffman. And Lee does a We Traveled There podcast that looks at different cities around the country and asks for a local expert or someone who really knows the area to share. If someone was going to travel there and they didn't just want to do the touristy things, what should they check out? What are those local inspired visits? And I was fortunate to be a guest talking about Ann Arbor, Michigan. We have another one coming up soon about bad boss stories, so experiences from earlier in my career where I had some crazy experiences with bad bosses, including, and I'll tease this one for you, getting fired for getting married. So that's always a pretty fun story. So that's exciting. What else is exciting? In the client meetings, we have been working this last week on creating bridges with 4 streams. 4 streams of income is one of the fundamental pieces or one of the fundamental concepts that I teach almost every client at some point. We have this conversation. And the idea with 4 streams of income is that if you only have 1 stream of income, that you'll be very unstable. If you have 2, that you can gain stability. If you have 3, you can begin growing. But if you have 4, that's when you hit consistency, because then if something bad happens with the economy or your business or your clients and you lose a stream, you're still going to be able to grow. Even if you lose 2, you're still stable. Getting to that spot where you have 4 streams, 4 different things that are bringing you income has tremendous value. We've been working on that with a number of clients, and it's exciting to see that as they get closer, many of the clients I start with have 1 stream when we begin. That's just their one idea, their one way to bring in revenue. So we build to that, and it takes time. But as each time that they add a stream and they see that additional income or that additional revenue come in, that they get excited. They start gaining confidence. They start gaining the stability and the ability to see the future in a very different light. And that's something that's been very powerful recently, even though we talk about it all the time. Just recently seeing 2 or 3 clients grab onto that and move with that has been good. The thing that I've been talking this week with several clients about may seem like a little bit of an odd flyer of a topic, and it is the idea that vacations are powerful, that taking time off is important. As entrepreneurs, the last thing that we want to do, or that we feel like we have the ability to do, is take a few hours or a day off, much less take a week or more off. And I'm here to tell you that I believe, much like the importance of sleep and sleeping more is truly critical, that taking vacations are critical. Taking this moment to step away, let your mind and your body recharge, spend time doing other things in your world, especially if you're pressing really hard as an entrepreneur and working a lot of hours when you're there, getting fully away from the situation and taking that break. One of my clients had not taken a break in literally 25 or 30 years and is taking a vacation this week. I'm super excited for that. Glad to see that they are. It's not only well-deserved, but it is necessary. You can just see it written on the person's face that, man, I need a break. I get worn down. No matter how strong and how effective you are, 2 things happen when you don't take vacations. One is that you get worn down and burn out maybe even without realizing it. It's like the paint yellowing on the walls around you. Then suddenly somebody walks in, they say, wow, that's great yellow paint. And you had painted the room white and you hadn't realized it. And so it happens slowly and it eats at us. And we take productivity losses that we don't recognize, but that add up very significantly over time. And we stop being able to give out in the same way that we need to help people in the same way that we need to, excuse me, and so that hurts us. The second is just that we get really exhausted, right? Is that we don't, without that break, we don't get the newness, we don't get wider experiences, we don't get that time to just recover. And recovery is something that's real when you're pushing very hard. So vacations are powerful. Now, on the flip side of this, let me be clear. I'm not saying that you should go take a vacation every month, right? That you should take weeks off every month. If your lifestyle allows it, and if that works for you, then feel free. But other than that, that is not what I'm saying. Really what I'm saying is, hey, take a couple of breaks a year that are legitimate breaks and do that. And I found that to be very helpful for my clients. The one last note I'll make on this is a vacation where you don't actually get away or don't actually change your behavior and obsess about work the entire time is not a vacation. I've had a few clients who go away and they come back and say, man, I don't feel refreshed. I don't feel recharged. It didn't work. And I start asking them questions, and most of the time it's because they spent 30 or 40 hours of their vacation working. And while that may have been less than they were spending before they went, they didn't actually get the benefit of the vacation. So I guess the last thing I'll touch on, I think is important. It ties into our earlier topic of managing overwhelm. And the idea is bend but don't break. What do I mean by that? I mean that we're going to have misses. Your struggles, whatever they are going to get to you. But don't let them break the dam and let the water flow all the way through. Let them bend. Don't penalize yourself or beat yourself up because you made a mistake or because something is starting to get to you. Instead, look and say, how can I recover? How can I move forward? Don't ignore it, because if you ignore it, what's going to happen is that wall is just going to break. And the water will come rushing in, and then you'll have this massive recovery to do. If, on the other hand, you say, hey, I built a flexible wall that's going to bend a little bit but not break, and then I can recover, I have that flexibility and that adaptability, you'll be in a much more successful and open spot. So my encouragement to you as you go to find your path is understand your personal struggles, accept them and own them. Don't let them control you, but also don't run from them. Don't hide from them. Don't act as if they don't exist. Step forward, own what they are, make a plan, and then continue to take steps forward for finding your path. I hope that me sharing how I'm finding my path and the struggles and challenges and successes that I'm having on the way are beneficial to you. I'm excited to hear your feedback and your ideas for these episodes. Feel free to share them in the comments. Let me know about the struggles that you're going through and the successes you're having, and continue taking steps forward on finding your path. I'll talk to you soon, and I look forward to seeing you for episode 7 next week. Thank you guys so very much. Have a wonderful weekend.